So now what we're going to do is just a little video combining the A and the B transformations together. So the vertical and horizontal stretching, shrinking, and reflections. So if I give you an equation like g of x is equal to 1/2 f of negative x, what you're given in the black graph is f of x. And we are going to transform this graph and create a new graph, g of x, where there's a half and a -1. So what does each do? Well, the one that's not in the bracket with the x is a transformation on y. Y, if you remember, is as it should be. So if it looks like you should multiply by a half, you should multiply by a half, or you could think of it as dividing by 2. This would be a vertical, because it's always good to describe transformations, a vertical shrink by a half. Okay, so that's one of the transformations, and the other one's in the bracket with x, so we know that this is going to affect x. Now everything with x is opposite as it appears, except that it's just multiplying by -1. So you multiply by -1, you divide by -1, it's doing the same thing. So we are going to multiply all of our x values by -1, which means that all of our x values are going to get reflected over the y-axis. So we'd say that this is going to be a reflection in the x values, which you don't need to put that part. If you don't need this, you don't need it, but I find I always have to put, okay, it's a transformation on x, we're reflecting the x values, but they're going over the y-axis. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Now we actually need to do it. So we're gonna pull off our key points, which remember happen every time you go from increasing to decreasing to constant in the function. So we're gonna have our first point here at -5, 0. We're gonna have our second point here at 0, 5. We're gonna have our next point at 1, 0. And we're gonna have our last point up here at 4, 1, 2, 3. So we've got 4 key points. Now, because each of them are transformations on x and y separately, we can actually do them together. So I always do my multiplications first. So multiply my x values, multiply my y values. So for this one, we're going to be multiplying the x values by -1, and then we're going to be either thinking of it as dividing the y values by 2 or multiplying them by a half. I find most people are happier with dividing by 2, but it does not matter. So we're just going to go on and write like this. So multiply by -1, divide by 2, multiply by -1, divide by 2. And some of you might think that's overkill to write it over and over again, but I swear you'll make so many less mistakes. So then we go through and we do it. So this point here at -5, 0, we're going to multiply the x value by -1 to make it a +5, and then 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So you could even go through and do that. Instead of having this point at 5, 0, it's getting reflected, and it's going to be over here at +5, 0. Then this point here, 0 times -1 is still 0, and then 5 divided by 2, you can do 2.5. I feel like that's easier for graphing, or 5 halves, it does not matter. So my next point is going to be at 0 and 2.5, so I'm going half as high, but the reflection didn't happen. Now I wish I had an ruler function, but I'm just going to connect these dots. I often like to connect 2 dots as I go. Sometimes I'll put all the dots on and then connect them. It just sort of depends upon how I'm feeling. This point here, I'm going to multiply 1 by -1. 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So now my next point is at -1, 0. And then my last point here is going to be at -4 and 1.5. So -4, because it's this point over here getting reflected, and then half as high to 1.5. I feel like I'm double checking because I had to redo this video because I missed a point. I read this one as 0.4 instead of 0.5. It can be hard sometimes. But that is my final graph. All right. So now what I recommend you do is pause the video and see if you can try this one. Okay, what's going to happen to each of the x and the y values? So for me, I'm looking at this guy. This is a transformation on y. This is going to multiply my y values by 3. It's going to be a vertical stretch by 3. And then this one in here is a transformation on x. Now, what is this going to do? Well, it's opposite as it appears. So it looks like I'm multiplying by half or dividing by 2. So this is actually going to multiply my x values by 2, but I'm actually going to multiply them by -2. And what that's going to do is 2 things. It's going to do the reflection of the x values over the y-axis, and it's going to be a horizontal stretch by 2. Okay, now let's pull out our key points. We've got a key point here at negative 3, 0. We've got a key point up here at negative 2, 2. We have a key point here at 0, 0. We have a key point here at 2, 2. And lastly, we have a key point here at 3, 0. Then I'm going to look to see what I'm doing with each of these points. I'm going to multiply the y values by 3. I do things a little differently every time, right? Just so you guys know, that's totally normal and it's great. And then all of my x values I'm going to multiply by negative 2. Okay, so this new point is going to be negative 3 times negative 2 is 6, and 0 times 3 is 0. So this point is getting reflected and stretched horizontally to become a point at 6, 0. So this is actually the point over here at negative 3, 0, getting moved over to the right-hand side at 6, 0. Then this point here, instead of being at negative 2, 2, is going to be at 4, 6. So I'm going to have a point here at 4 and 6. And then again, I can connect them. So, geez, that was awful. I really wish there was a ruler function. Someday they're going to create one. Yeah, no, they haven't yet. Okay, try my best. Oh, that's going to go off too. And I could stop being a perfectionist. But you guys are all using rulers, right? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, and then this next point is going to be at 0, 0 still. So it's an invariant point. It does not change. And then this point is going to be at negative 4, 6. So negative 4, 6. It's been vertically stretched by 3 and horizontally stretched by 2, as well as reflected in the x values over the y-axis. And then my last point is going to be at negative 6, 0. So it's going to be down here. It's like kitty cat ears. Awesome. And that is the end of the A and B transformations. Make sure you practice a bunch of these because then we're going to add on C and D and then do them all together. Good luck.